Hey everyone. Hey, hey. That is twice in one day, but I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to go live this afternoon to make sure, or this evening for a lot of you, and show up for some folks that could not make it this morning. So you're gonna feel a little bit, you might be not offended, but you might get in your feelings, but feel free to leave if that happens because we're going to talk about what's really holding your nonprofit back and the things you need to look out for as a leader and the things that you need to be doing as a leader to ensure that you are not the reason your nonprofit cannot move forward. Because that is something that we want to start avoiding. And you want to make sure that you are not the bottleneck. That's the right word, the bottleneck in your nonprofit organization where nothing is happening, where nothing is going well, where nothing is going the way you want it to go. So, for those who are new here, my name is Stacy Volsi. I am a nonprofit consultant and I help smaller to mid-sized nonprofits that are making about 50K to $5 million in revenue. It is a huge range. So each client that I help has a different level of service that I can provide. And the way I help them is by increasing their impact and grow and increasing their revenue generation potential in 6 months through strategic planning and capacity building. So if that is you, definitely stick around because I want to make sure I talk to you and you understand the things that you need to be looking for in terms of how you may be causing that blockage and causing your nonprofit to be in stall mode and not being able to move forward. So grab a cup and grab a notebook because if that is something you're not ready to hear, I completely respect that. But I need to make sure that it is said and that you understand where I'm coming from. Because being a leader in a nonprofit organization is not for everybody. It is not for everybody. Now, if you're not ready to be called to the carpet or actually have someone tell you the honest truth about what it takes to succeed with a nonprofit organization, maybe this is not the right field for you. Because then the other thing is like some people start for the wrong reasons. Like some people start a nonprofit organization because they just want to start one and they feel like that's the best way they can support people. And they feel like being a founder means a lot because a lot of times people will not admit that the title founder or the title executive director, even though they're not leading anything but a piece of gum, right? It means something to them, right? And that is a huge issue in the nonprofit industry where some people stick to the title and the problem so tight that they're not actually growing, right? And then one thing that I see on a consistent basis when I meet a nonprofit like leader who asks for a consultation, if the first thing, and they're not even 3 years old, that they say we need funding, I can tell they're not ready to work with me. And the reason for that is if funding is the first thing that goes through your mind that you need in your nonprofit, like we already know you need money to make things run. But if that's the only problem you see, you have a bigger problem at hand because it really isn't the main problem. Most of the times, it's the other things. If you don't have them, they cause an issue within your nonprofit. Okay, they cause the bottlenecks that I'm talking about. They cause like significant issues, right? And the biggest problem that I see is not the funding. Like the biggest problem I see, I know we talk about like this morning, I spoke about system being a very big issue. Give me one second. Let me make sure I tag some people here. I know funding may be a big issue, but that is not the main issue. And I need you guys to like really settle down, settle yourselves so you can understand that it goes way beyond funding when it comes to leading an organization and making sure that it's successful. Like, again, this morning we talk about lack of system. That is one part, but the one thing that you are not considering is your mindset in running the nonprofit organization. Because I had quite a few meetings this week. Like I kid you not, I think I overextended myself having trainings, workshops, meetings, networking with people. And the one thing, some of the rooms where the nonprofit organizations were successful, they're going after bigger monies, right? Because then I also take grant training classes for myself because then I want to improve my skill set. And in the rooms, there were other nonprofit leaders that show up and their issues, they already know it's not just the funding. Yes, they have staff, but they also had to work on the systems, the capacity building, and like strategy to ensure they are where they are, even though they're not completely there yet. They understood they need what they need to do to get there. But then one thing I'm realizing in myself that nonprofit leaders need to also um, be very honest about, like, let me close a few windows. If you're here, hashtag live, because then half the time I can't see who's here, especially with this Facebook on my computer. But definitely, like, it's your mindset, the way you approach it. Because one conversation I had this week with another person in a nonprofit, she was determined that fundraising would not go well for her this year because of Monday, 47 taking office. But how does that relate to the work you have to do? I had to ask her to start minding her business and her nonprofit's business because oftentimes our minds will play tricks on us where we're not taking the intentional and strategic actions that we need to take within our nonprofits to actually move the needle. Like, we keep ruminating on the things that do not have anything to do with us, the communities we serve, and the nonprofit itself. And it's causing us to kind of keep going in circles and not being able to do the work. And at this point, it's ridiculous. Because then, oh, am I going to be able to fundraise this year? Oh, am I going to be able to generate as much money? You're not making any money right now. You're not generating any revenue. So do you see what I'm saying? It's like people are focused on the wrong things. You have a problem generating revenue, but you're worried about generating revenue that you've never generated because you've never taken action. Like, the priorities are all messed up. And I need you to come back to earth and realize that because you're so focused on popular beliefs and like what people are talking about and what's trending, you're forgetting the things that actually matter. Like 2024, my motto the whole year was mind your business. And that has served me well to this day because it's the same concept for nonprofit leaders. Like, you need to mind your business and lead the organization that you told yourself you were going to lead, because that's all that matters right now. That and the impact you're making in the communities you're serving. Like, that's what you need to focus on. Because then, like, if you can't do that, then we got a problem. Maybe this is not the right field for you, because if you focus on the business you're supposed to be minding, you can serve more people in the community. Because then I shared the statistics a couple of times, like 75% of nonprofits fail within 10 years. Like, they dissolve within 10 years. There's a reason for that. Lack of funding, lack of staffing, staff turnover, and things like that. But if you're not focusing and minding your business, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to end up closing shop. And no one has time for that. Like, you need to start putting yourself in a position where you are growing as a leader, and you cannot do that if you don't work on this. Because when I say, I think the powers that be that my feed was not clogged up with people crying over TikTok or people crying over Monday's inauguration because I can't. There are greater things at play. There are communities that need help. Because then, beyond my own business and the work that I do try to serve in different philanthropic areas as well. Like, okay, there are other things I can do with my time, other things I can do to ensure that I'm accomplishing my goals and serving the people I say I want to serve. And that includes minding my business. Like, I see what's happening. Do I agree with everything that's happening? No, but what am I going to do about it? Because then I don't know if you read my post about resilience. I'm a very like solution focused person. If I cannot do anything about it, that's none of my business. Because what am I going to do about it? And I want you to ask yourself the same thing. What are you going to do about it besides complain? Because the more you complain, what's happening? Hey, Spurgeon, how are you? Because then you keep complaining about things you can't change, but you're not doing anything to make that change. Now, we have to make it make sense. Because at what point are you going to focus on the solutions and the actions needed to reach that solution? Like, you can't do that if your mind's not right, your mindset's not right. Because then, if all I hear from any client or anybody coming to me, oh, we need funding, we need funding, we need funding, what work have you been doing? Because nonprofits don't just start with funding unless you started working on it way before you filed your 1023 or whatever. Like, unless you have family members that are dishing the money and you're able to do the work, it doesn't start that way. Like, if you're 0 to 3 years old as a nonprofit and you haven't been doing any community engagement, any outreach, and any like relationship building, then it's on you if you can't get funding. That's your problem. That's your business. Because remember, I said mind your business. There's a reason I said that, because not every problem is your business. Now, I need you to mind your business in 2025. There are different ways you can do that. Work on your systems. Work on being an active fundraiser. Like, instead of waiting for grants or like people to donate, how about you go look for them? How about you reach out to corporations, companies, small businesses in your area that have a vision or a mission that aligns with yours and talk to these leaders, build relationships with these leaders and make an ask. Because if you don't build the relationships and make an ask, it's 100% no. Because then it's either they say yes, either they say no. That's 50-50. If you don't ask, that's 100% no. So you have to make the decision and you have to change the way you think about fundraising and the way you think about getting the funds necessary to do the work in your nonprofit. Let's say you work with the veteran population in your area. You better have a compelling story as to why your nonprofit is needed in the community. And you better be doing some work in the community as well. Because the reason I say that is because if I'm going to have you do active fundraising and go seek those partnerships, your elevator pitch better be ready. The reason I want your elevator pitch to be ready is because when you approach these people, I don't want you rambling and talking about things that don't make sense. Because a lot of people do that. When people ask them, oh, what do you do? Right? And they start talking about everything that don't make sense. Oh, we help veterans. Veterans have XYZ. They didn't ask you all that. Can you stick to the story? Like, why is it that you help veterans? Like, our veterans have been serving this nation and have been putting their lives at risk, but for some reason they are underserved. They have a lot of issues or services not available to them. And our nonprofit is determined to be able to bridge that gap in this community. And one way we can do that is by doing XYZ. Like, again, get your elevator pitch ready so what you're saying makes sense. And if it makes sense to you, I want you to remember something. That doesn't mean it's going to make sense for somebody else. So you better have someone that you're practicing on, or somebody that doesn't know anything about your organization, and have a conversation. Um, Practice your pitch on that person, and have them like critique you. It's okay to get critique, and please, like, go to a professional, go to somebody in the workplace, go to someone that who has credibility. Don't go to your mama, don't go to your grandma, don't go to your daughter, anybody that's trying to please you, or anybody that's going to tell you what you want to hear. Please don't. Sometimes you have to take it, you have to be able to take feedback, constructive feedback, in a good way, and not be afraid of hearing things that are not pleasing to your ears. So definitely, like, craft a pitch craft a pitch and start building relationships. Because, oh, I'm nervous, I'm shy. Y'all, I'm nervous, I'm shy, I'm an introvert. But you see me going live all the time. Why is that? Why is that? Have you ever asked yourself that? Because after my lives, I will be honest, for anybody who's watching, I go to bed or I try to catch a nap. It's exhausting for me. But do I do it? Yes, because my mission, my goal this year is bigger than me wanting to stay in my comfort zone. I value that more than the stories I tell myself. Because to me, it's a story I'm telling myself. I'm telling myself I'm an introvert. Am I? Because when I go places, everybody wants to talk to me. I don't know why, because I have a RBF. I'm not that friendly all the time. Okay. So I have to decide, I have to pick what I want to do. I have to be intentional about what I want to do. So I need you to sit down, write down what you want to accomplish with your nonprofit. What is a non-negotiable for you to accomplish with the nonprofit this year? And who needs to come to the table with you? Because that's the other thing that I feel like nonprofits are not doing enough, is including everybody that is involved in a nonprofit, to so they can have buy-in. If you have a board that's not active, that's because you don't have any buy-in. Like, you haven't delegated, you haven't kept anybody accountable for the work they're supposed to be doing. So I'm gonna need you to get serious about that in 2025. Like, 2025 is another year of the snake, the year of the nines. Like, I love this year. Okay, 2025, for some reason, something told me this is my year and the year for 100 other nonprofits. And believe it or not, my goal is to serve 100 nonprofits to grow this year, and to accomplish, to meet their goals, and to be on the track for to meet their vision. And I've already started that in ways that don't only have to do with business. Because then I've done it with my philanthropy work, donating and stuff like that. Like, it's happening. And I want you to realize that you can create that for yourself in your nonprofit as well, if you just make a decision to right now and you stick to it. So, what is your vision for your nonprofit in 2025? If you tell me funding, I'm gonna ignore you. That's just it. Because a nonprofit organization is a social impact business. So if your goal is to make social impact, like, make sure that your goals and vision revolve around that. Because from then, your operational plan can have actions that lead to your vision. Because your strategic plan, whatever your goal is, whatever, right? But your operational plan will help you do the work that's needed to get there. And then there you can include whatever revenue diversification, or like, that you need to have to meet your goals in your strategic plan. Like, I hope that makes sense. If that makes sense to you and you're watching the replay or you're live, drop a one if that makes sense. Now, I really need you to sit down. Today, 23rd of January. Like New Year's felt like it was just yesterday, but it wasn't. It's 23rd of January and taxes are going to be due soon. Like in less than 3 months, taxes are due. Well, the first deadline. So, do you have your goals or vision yet for your nonprofit? Because a lot of people are going to go on ChatGPT. Hey, can you help me write a vision? I love ChatGPT. And like I was telling somebody yesterday, I call my ChatGPT Chasey. But ChatGPT is not the solution for everything. You need to know what your vision for your nonprofit organization is, or you and your team need to have a clear vision and come up with a clear vision of where the nonprofit organization needs to go. Like if you do not have that, I am telling you, start working on it. Because if you have a clear mission and you have a vision, you can build from there. Okay, you can build a strategic plan from there. And if that's something that you need help with your organization, definitely book a strategy session because I can help you and give you the steps on how to accomplish that. Now, if you can't sit down because you feel like it's too much work, I promise you the nonprofit industry is not for you. Okay. Like if you're not willing to sit your tail down and work on your mission, your vision, and actually like the steps necessary to move your nonprofit in the right direction, the direction you need to go without obsessing over how much money you're gonna make, this industry is not for you. And I say that with my chest. Like, it's not for you. Because then I'll give an example. Just today, I don't work with the nonprofit I co-founded anymore for people that didn't know that. But the work I do, like right now, when I talk to people, I approach it with the same manner. And that's how I know the nonprofit did not make me the leader that I am in the community. This woman told me about what she's been going through, what she needs, and I got to work finding her organizations that could support her in what she's going through. Like, just because I have my title, I was a project director and co-founder, I can't do that. Come on now. No, I had like, in my heart, I had a mission with the nonprofit. I have a mission for my business. I have a mission as an individual. My mission as an individual is to help single moms. Like I've had that mission in my heart for years, but never like spoke it out loud. But it's to help single moms, moms of color. And I do that without even realizing it. So does your nonprofit have a clear mission and a vision that you're working towards? It's like my experience in the nonprofit industry did one thing for me. It helped me, it helped me like really understand the impact nonprofits can make. And my experience as an entrepreneur helped me understand that nonprofits are where they are having a hard time getting funding because they're not operating in the way they should. They're operating purely out of passion and they don't have systems in place. And oftentimes, smaller nonprofits are being led by people that think too small, people that do not have vision, people that refuse to see past their own wallets. Disempowered people cannot empower people. That's something I've said before, and I will say it again. Disempowered people cannot empower people. So if you call yourself a nonprofit leader and you are always sad about everything, You're worried about where your next check is going to come from. You're worried about everything in life. How are you going to help the next person? How are you going to help this person, unhoused individual, unhoused veteran that's coming to you for help? Because you're going to listen with empathy. Empathy is going to be there. But if your nonprofit goes under and you have to dissolve the nonprofit because you're not getting the funding you need, how are you going to support that person? Because your lack of empowerment, you being disempowered and not believing in the things that you can do, cause you to not do what you're supposed to do. And what you're supposed to be doing as a leader is making sure you have enough money in the bank to support the work you're supposed to be doing. That's your job. Because if you do not have that, then you can't support the impact you're supposed to be doing. If you cannot generate that yet, you need to figure out what you need to have in place to generate that, because your nonprofit organization is a business that needs to function strategically and intentionally to generate revenue compared to a for-profit business. So what that looks like for a community-based organization. A community-based organization is an organization that served people in the community in whatever shape or form. So what that looks like for you, you need to make sure you're engaging with your community. You have an outreach and people, you're visible. There's a reason I created the community visibility checklist. Because some of you know my story with the nonprofit I co-founded. Started in 2016. Me and my spouse were the only ones funding it, as well as family members. It was hard. And, marketing and stuff like that. But one thing that I made for sure over the years, I would post on our social media some like educational things. So when push came to shove, when people were asking for statistics of what I did or what we did, I could pull out the analytics and say we provided education to XYZ community. Because what happens is when you pull your analytics, you can see the demographic and how many people open your post. So not everything has to cost money. At the beginning, not everything has to cost money. You can actually use the tools that you have to educate a subset of the population, or even join certain Facebook groups, wink, wink. Because then maybe go to Facebook groups as an individual, because then some of you may be following me. You see me in groups like Grants for Nonprofits, Nonprofit Network, or whatever. Great. There's a reason. It's because people I help are in those environments. I don't mind talking to these people. You need to go where people that you serve are. Maybe not just promote your nonprofit, but if they have questions about something, like let's say I'm using veterans, I think Spurgeon is because I know you're on live, but let's say they have questions on where they can get a certain resource in a community, right? Maybe you share that resource without any expectation. Share the resource like, hey, I understand how difficult it is. Show empathy. Show empathy and stop trying to chase the next dollar, because your community, your audience will not have that dollar for you. But lead with your heart when it comes to your community, and lead savagely when it comes to your partners and sponsors and funders. Because you need to be able to make a difference between the two. You have several audiences as a nonprofit leader. You have the community you're serving. You have your funders, so grantors, sponsors, whatever. And you have your strategic partners, donors, and then you have the donors and whatnot. So you need to understand what hat you have on when you're engaging with different populations and different audiences. So if you go to the groups that have your particular audience, maybe it's single moms of, I live in Sacramento, single moms of Sacramento, or whatever group that has your subset of the population. If there are questions being asked and you have the resource, share it with them. Because remember, If you do not have the means to hire someone for a role, be strategic about how you're doing the work. Don't just sit on your thumbs trying to figure out, how do I get funding to do this? How do I do this? How do I do that? Figure it out. Everything is figure outable. Okay? Figure it out. Because then I don't have any pity for people that are not doing what they're supposed to do. If you tell me you have a funding problem, what are you not doing? Why? Why is that? If you don't have volunteers, why? Because you can go get them. You better go to your community college and ask them if you can do outreach or table on their campus so you can recruit volunteers. You better sign up for outreach events, fairs, community fairs. Sign up as a vendor. Show up. People come to your table. Make sure you have literature. If you hear me say lit, I'm talking about literature. Make sure you have lit on your table. You have pamphlets, you have flyers, and make sure you invest in what them things called? Banners. Like design a banner that has information about your nonprofit. And wink, wink, put a QR code for your donations. That's a free tip. Put a QR code on your banner for donations. Like if you don't have a professional tablecloth, get a white one from Walmart and get transfer paper and iron on your logo in the front. Everything is figure outable. If you tell me you cannot spare $100 to get the supplies that you need, or you can get people to donate $100 so you can get them supplies, you got a bigger problem at hand. That means you're not resourceful. And I'm going to need you to use that brain of yours and start calling in what your nonprofit needs. Because if you have a mission to help folks, better get to work. Y'all, you better get to work, because nonprofit organizations, like if you look at the industry in itself, it's a huge industry. It's $1 billion industry. And the amount of people getting employed by nonprofits is huge. Because then I hear some leaders saying, oh, we're only volunteer led. Why? Because then being able to use the funds you generate to pay people, isn't that economic security? If you're a community-based organization and your goal is to empower people, economic security, isn't that the best way to empower folks? I'll let you think about that. So how do you get to a point where you're truly able to empower folks? Truly able to do the work that you say you want to do. But I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to let it do what it do, because I don't know what else to say. Like, if you have any questions and you're watching, you can drop them in the live before I hop off, because I'm driving a little far today. So I'm going to leave soon. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, in the chat, so I can address them throughout the night and also tomorrow. Whew. But yeah, this part of the conversation is the conversation nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear that they're not doing their jobs. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're just lazy. Some people don't want to hear that. They want to hear that they're working hard, but you are keeping yourself busy doing work that doesn't matter. Yesterday, I had to tell someone on a call. She was focused on website. And I had to ask her, does it, like, your website is up. I know there are some problems aesthetically, but does that matter right now? Does that matter? And is that what you need to focus your energy on? Like, I had to call her out. Is that what matters right now? Because if you're not able to raise not $1, I don't think it matters right now. Just put it up and go. Do the next thing. Do the next thing. Like, there is no ifs and buts about it, but you have to be willing to get your head out of the sand and do the work. Because nobody's going to do it for you. Because then if you're saying you're doing everything and you're tired, do you even have systems in place so you can delegate? A lot of people don't understand that you cannot delegate work that keeps you burnt out if you have no systems in place. You have no SOPs, you have no manuals, you have no onboarding process. So if you're looking for someone to bring in, how's that person going to start? Who's going to be responsible for continuously making sure that person has what they need? And how long does onboarding take place? Do you have the capacity for that? So create systems, create processes where you streamline the whole process. So when volunteers on board, when new staff on board, you know exactly what you're doing. There's a reason for like that big corporations and companies have systems is because to make sure that there's consistency in the way that they are functioning and the way they are supporting people, they create systems. There's a reason to the way they do things. I see people saying, "Oh, I don't want to be just like the other corporations. They sound fake." There's a reason. There's a reason. That's why these organizations and companies last longer than your business. Because they actually understand that consistency and being able to replicate success is important. Being able to retain clients is important. In your case, donor retention is important. Volunteer retention is important. So the same concepts that for-profit businesses have, you need to adopt the similar concepts for your nonprofit, but in a different way so it can serve your social impact. Now, I hope that makes sense because then I would go on and on about this topic and pull you to the carpet if I could tonight because I was reading a form. I tend to read the forms for consultations that I have a lot just to get some information on how my ideal clients think. Too many of y'all are focusing on funding. Funding is not your problem. Your organization's just a hot mess. It's a hot mess and you don't know what you're doing. So you think funding is going to fix that? No, it won't. You might get the funding and not know what to do with it. I said this morning, like the first grant I applied for that the previous nonprofit I work with got, it was for what, 63,000. Somebody in the nonprofit network that got that grant as well because it was a project. They had to give the money back. They didn't have the capacity to manage it. So do you understand? If you do not have the capacity to manage the funding you are hoping for and praying for your nonprofit, you may have to give it back, or you may have a funder trying to collect its money back. And most funders do not give big monies like that up front. You have to show results and file a financial report for them to reimburse you. So if you're not able to manage it and use the money, how are you going to do that? How are you going to submit a financial report to get that reimbursement? And all of them have a timeline. Because then let's say you have 1 year for this project and they give you 100K. You only have 2 people on staff. 100K is not easy to spend if you don't have the capacity. If you have the capacity, it goes quick. Quick, quick, quick. Like, quick. Like, don't make no sense quick. The 100K is nothing if you have the capacity and the staff. But if you don't, it's going to be hard. Because then let's say you only have one person you're paying. Their salary is what, 50K, 65K, depending on the position. Maybe you pay yourself for zero point 0.4 FTE, 0.3 FTE, 0.25 FTE, and you're purchasing print material and literature. That's not enough to spend the whole thing. So you have to start working on building your capacity. And for when you receive money, start creating your system. So if you have to hire someone for a position, for a project, for a grant that you got, you already have a recruiting process, right? You have documents or documentation, like a onboarding documentation and all of that. So make sure you work on that. But anyways, y'all, I'm gonna go now. And thank you so much for catching me. Drop any questions that you have in the comments. I appreciate you and thank you so much. Bye, y'all.